These are the horrifying words that came out of her mouth. I quote, "It was the most difficult thing I had done in my life to please God. As I walked out of the Greenes' house with a smoking gun in my hands, I realized that I had accomplished only half of the assignment that the angel of the Lord had ordered me to do. Lynn Greene was dead with a shot in her chest and a second one in her head. Nathaniel, the Greenes' 3-year-old little boy, had been shot in the face, and his father, David Greene Jr., had managed to escape through a patio door with only a bullet in his back. Will God forgive me for having done such a poor job?" Those words were spoken in 1996 across a table in the women's penitentiary in Salem, Oregon, by Sharon Lee Halstead, who is serving a life sentence for murder. What power had guided her on November 5 of 1988 to kill innocent people? Welcome to Patterns of Supernatural Phenomena. The man who interviewed Ms. Halstead in the women's prison that day was a journalist named Roger Morneau. He was there to answer a question: what could lead a woman who considered herself a devout Christian to commit cold-blooded murder? It all began when Sharon Halstead and her family, including her sons Leo and Harry, and her sister Deborah, joined a small prayer group led by murder victim Lynn Greene and her husband David Greene Jr. These people believed that they had evolved into a higher standing before God and had been given the gift of seeing angels and hearing them speak. Many thought Lynn was a prophet. For years she had claimed to converse with angels and even with Jesus himself, who had told her that she and her group were very special people in his plan for the world. He would use them to accomplish wonders. All the members of the prayer group were Seventh Day Adventists, so there was an accepted tradition that chosen individuals could talk with angels, just as Adventist founder Ellen G. White had claimed to have done in the 19th century. And over time, people within the Greenes group received what they considered miraculous gifts from the angels. One man believed he had been given the gift of reading minds, which he didn't really enjoy. Knowing what people actually think about you can be disturbing. A woman was given a cat with fur that changed back and forth from stripes to spots. Lynn's husband David said he had the gift of space travel or out-of-body experiences. Also, the angels gave many flattering prophecies about group members. All were designed to make them believe that they had special standing before God, far above others who claimed to be Christians. How did their prayer group work? In the Greenes' home, they would gather in a circle not unlike a seance. Then one person would reveal that they were speaking to angels. Other members of the group would tell their problems to this individual, who acted as a medium. Through this person, advice would be given as from the angels. At this point, we need to ask a serious question. Was everyone in that prayer group delusional to the point of raving lunacy? The easy answer is yes, but was that true? All of them were average people who held down jobs and had families. David Greene Jr. was a dental hygienist. Yet they claimed to have had meetings with supernatural beings that they believed were straight from God, and those visitations were beautiful. Recently, the actress Goldie Hawn revealed that many years ago she looked up at the sky and asked aliens to come and visit her. She reports that they did. She says that while she was paralyzed, they touched her and the ecstasy felt like the finger of God. Her life was transformed by it. How different is this from what that prayer group initially experienced? All of it is consistent with thousands of reports from abductees, psychedelic drug users, people who have spirit guides, shamans, priests, and many more. and such reports go back eons. An example? In 1581, British mathematician, astrologer, astronomer, and occultist Dr. John Dee, who was a science advisor to Queen Elizabeth I, and his associate Edward Kelly, announced that angels had contacted them. These supernatural entities had given them a heavenly language so that they could converse with the spiritual realm. It had complex script, grammar, and structure, which they recorded down to the smallest detail. Dee called it Enochian, saying that Enoch, the biblical character in the book of Genesis, was the last human with whom angels had shared this message. Enochian is still of great interest for occultists today. So what do these eons of reports mean? To say that all such experiences are nothing but delusional lunacy is itself delusional lunacy. I suggest that the experiences of Sharon Halstead and her family were real, and are important because they reveal with horrifying clarity satanic methods that are so effective in bringing destruction to millions. While those methods are tailored to each individual and most often do not lead to murder, the ultimate goal of the evil beings that employ them, whether they appear as angels, aliens, fairies, spirit guides, or pagan deities, is the same: the enslavement and destruction of the human race. For 5 years prior to the night of murder, supernatural entities visited members of Lynn Greene's prayer group with beautiful messages and gifts. The goal was to create total dependence, which would lead to total obedience. Once that obedience was established, the messages changed. The group was told that an apocalypse was coming on the world and they needed to help prepare God's people to live through it. They must do this by collecting money and other necessities. They were strongly reminded that God owns the planet and everything on it. So this was the command from the angels. God wanted them to start transferring items out of the possession of eternally damned individuals. They were to take these items to hiding places where they would be kept until needed. It was a special work they were called to do because they were special people. How was this to be accomplished? They were to go to certain stores and take designated items without paying for them. It wouldn't be stealing because everything belonged to God. And they shouldn't worry about being caught either. The supernatural entities informed them that the things they removed would be made invisible to store employees. Does that sound insane? Well, it worked. No matter what they took, they were never caught. At one point, they were commanded to take a large number of items. It was a big order. In this case, to further protect them, not only would the items be made invisible, but their own physical appearances would be changed. It took 5 trips to steal this haul. According to a much later police report, in 6 months, the prayer group stole $50,000 worth of merchandise without ever being caught. In today's money, that is almost $130,000. Well, this gave them a lot of joyful confidence. They really were special servants of God. The fact that what they were doing was in direct disobedience to the Bible didn't matter. God makes the rules. When He speaks to you through His angels, well, that supersedes everything else. Then in 1988, there came a wonderful revelation specifically to the Halstead family. They were informed that Sharon's younger son, Leo, would receive the gift of seeing angels. And what a blessing that was for them. Leo had one angel in particular that became his personal guide. This being, who called itself Naked Truth, started giving specific instructions about the way Sharon and her family were to live. They were told that being absolutely obedient to all commands was vastly important for their spiritual well-being. And Leo's miraculous gift constantly grew. One day he announced that he could see whether a person was totaled or not. totaled meant that an individual had been completely taken over by demons. They weren't human anymore. Their bodies were just shells and their spirits were gone. Naked Truth instructed Leo that not only was stealing from them perfectly acceptable, it was fine to destroy their property as well. They were just removing it from Satan's control. In fact, even killing a total person wasn't wrong. They wouldn't be murdering a human. They would just be relieving the world of a body possessed by evil spirits. What came next, Leo called combat training. The family needed to get ready for even heavier responsibilities. To start with, Sharon and Deborah were ordered to get back into the shoplifting business. They must go to stores owned by total people, such as Kmart, Albertsons, and Safeway, and start appropriating items for God. The order from Naked Truth was absolute. If anyone refused to shoplift, they would be totaled. This became a nightmarish responsibility, and it was exhausting. Day after day, from morning to night, they were ordered to go back to stores and steal. Sharon and Deborah hated doing it. They would plead with Leo to ask Naked Truth to be released from this horrible task. In tears, Leo would shout that they had to do it, or they would all be totaled. Not to follow God's orders was to follow Satan. The supernatural revelations from Naked Truth never stopped. Leo was informed that combat training had to deepen. To serve God, he and his older brother Harry were told to slash the tires of total people. Sharon drove them to a car dealership where they carried out the command. After that, the training got even more dangerous. The family was ordered to go to a park and assault people, which they did, walking up from behind and hitting unsuspecting victims in the head. And they were never caught. The preparation for spiritual combat grew even darker. They were ordered to steal a gun and a truck. In the process, they murdered its owner. But that was fine because the man was totaled. Leo said God would disguise the truck by changing its color and license plates. They escaped without a problem. Finally came the ultimate horrifying revelation. I quote Sharon Halstead. One day an angel told Leo that Lynn and David Greene's son had chosen not to follow God, and the parents, because of their love for their son, had followed him and had become totaled. That God had taken their spirits to heaven, and they were looking down upon us and wanted us to destroy their physical bodies so the demons could not possess and control them to hurt God's people. I began to worry and dreaded the day we would be told by an angel to destroy them. End of quote. The Greene's son was 3 years old. The order came, and the fatal night arrived. I'm going to quote an excerpt from the statement presented by the Deputy District Attorney during the sentencing of Sharon Lee Halstead. Between 9 and 9:30 p.m., the Halstead group went to the Greene family home. They watched some television. Sharon and Harry went to the bathroom. Harry wrote on the wall, "Trust in Jesus." Dave, Lynn, and Nathaniel Greene were at the dining room table. Mr. and Mrs. Greene were paying bills. Nathaniel was seated in a booster chair playing with some toys. Mrs. Greene went into the kitchen and saw the writing on the wall in the bathroom. She became upset and asked who was writing on the wall. When no one confessed, she ordered the group to leave. At this point, at Leo's apparent direction, Sharon pulled the stolen gun. Lynn Greene said, "I hope this is a joke." End of quote. It wasn't a joke. Sharon Halstead shot Lynn Greene twice and she died instantly. David Greene Jr. was shot but escaped through an outer door with a bullet in his back. Little Nathaniel was shot in the face. He lived but was paralyzed from the chest down. David Greene Jr. survived and told the police everything that had happened. A detail that I haven't mentioned. Sharon's son Leo who directed everything obeying orders from the angels, was 9 years old. I want you to consider something. The horror that played out on that fateful night is a microcosm of the terror that has enslaved the human race for eons. From those guided through fear to sacrifice human victims to the gods, including thousands of children and babies, to the burning of innocent people for centuries condemned as witches and heretics, to the Holocaust and the gassing of 6 million Jews and millions of others, to the murder of children in classrooms, to terrorists killing to cleanse their world, and on, murderers have obeyed their satanic deities. The point of our entire series is that there is a host of supernatural beings serving their god Satan, who appear in thousands of forms, including lovely, scintillating entities, in order to take advantage of vulnerable people. For those who claim to be Christians, they can manifest as saints, the Virgin Mary, and even Jesus himself. In episode 9 of our series, entitled Are These the Days of the End?, we gave statistics proving that the past 125 years have been filled with horror and evil beyond anything that has gone before. And it was predicted by Jesus in the 24th chapter of Matthew. At this dark moment in history, if we want to stand against such evil, we need to be aware of its hellish patterns. How could Sharon Halstead and her sister Deborah, two normal, intelligent women, be led step by step to do what they did? In prison, the women asked themselves that question. It was a process that took years, and it was based on believing a series of lethal errors. At this moment, these errors are deeply at work in the world, and especially in the Christian Church of America. The first error was in thinking that anything beautiful must be good. And what was the proof of that goodness? To be in its presence gave you pleasure and a sense of self-worth. This lying trap has destroyed millions, and not just religious people. I spent my career as a writer and executive producer in Hollywood. The entertainment industry has always drawn hosts of the most physically beautiful and talented people in the world. I learned early on that beauty and talent were not a measure of goodness. Some of the most beautiful and talented people, stars worshipped by millions, were also the most evil and destructive. In looking at their lives, it was as though they had been prepared from earliest childhood to spread anger, hate, and fear, which for a time they would conceal behind scintillating charm. To be in their presence, for them to notice you, made you feel so special. But after they had established control, that lovely facade would disappear. Then for the chosen ones who served them, the misery would begin. Far more than human beauty, loveliness and supernatural beings can hide evil beyond human comprehension. In the New Testament, the Apostle Paul warned in 2 Corinthians 11, verses 14 and 15, that even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. So it is no surprise if his servants also disguise themselves as servants of righteousness. Think about that. What is righteousness? It's defined as being pure of heart, doing only right things. Purity of heart brings light into the world. Aren't those the kind of leaders we want to follow? But what is Paul saying? That Satan and his servants, both human and supernatural, can fake righteousness, purity of heart filled with light, so perfectly it looks like they are straight from heaven. At the beginning, the Halsteads fell into the power of charismatic false teachers who faked righteousness while presenting lies as truth. And that is happening right now around the world, in churches, mosques, synagogues, classrooms, political rallies, and on cell phones and television screens. For the Halsteads, representatives of Satan had spread the lie that so-called new light was available to serious followers of Jesus. This was revelation not available in the past. It was only for this period of history and for those who were chosen by God to receive it. If a person could get close enough to God by total obedience, angels would bring them special knowledge and power. This is satanic theology. What do the powers of darkness want you to believe? How do you find perfection and righteousness? You work for it. But that is the opposite of the true message of Jesus Christ. Salvation is a gift from God by faith in Him alone. You can't work for it. Crawling on your knees over miles of broken glass to worship at a temple will not get you there. More than anything, Satan wants to destroy the true message of salvation in Jesus. In Galatians 1:6-9, the Apostle Paul tells his readers, "I'm amazed that you are so quickly deserting Him who called you by the grace of Christ for a different gospel, which is really not another. Only there are some who are disturbing you and want to distort the gospel of Christ. But even if we or an angel from heaven should preach to you a gospel contrary to what we have preached to you, he is to be accursed. As we have said before, so I say again, now if any man is preaching to you a gospel contrary to what you received, he is to be accursed." Believing the lies of false teachers caused the Halsteads to fall into another lethal error. While claiming to be Christians, they stopped actually studying and believing the Bible. In the process, they disregarded a serious warning found in 1 John 4:1, which says, "Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world." How do you test the spirits? Do their messages disagree on any level with God's Word? Who do they say that Jesus is? Do they say that He is the only begotten Son of God who took on human flesh and gave His life to save the world from sin? Anything that disagrees with that tells you who they really are. To use the Scriptures to test the spirits, you need to know the Scripture. Getting people to ignore the Bible is an age-old strategy of fallen angels and their human servants. At all costs, keep everyone away from it. If they must read it, twist its clear meaning. Destroy their faith in its accuracy. Make it appear unnecessary for their lives. Better yet, take it away completely. False leaders of the Roman Catholic Church did this for centuries, even murdering those who wanted to translate the Bible into the language of the people. After all, why do you need the Bible when you can hear from God through spiritual wolves and evil angels? They always have one goal: to put you under their power. Many years ago, I was teaching a weekly Bible study in the home of a wealthy man in Beverly Hills. He was a new believer in Jesus, and with all of his success, he suffered from debilitating fear. He was agoraphobic, frightened to leave his house. In particular, he was terrified of flying, but his work often called him to travel, which he had stopped doing. With a lot of prayer and personal support, we worked with him to overcome this enslavement. At one point, he made reservations to take a trip. To support him, we went to the airport with him and his wife. Everything looked so good. With confidence, he got on the plane. But before the door closed, he rushed back out. He just couldn't do it. So the spiritual battle continued. It took much more time and prayer, but slowly his fear began to vanish. One evening into the Bible study came an attractive, charismatic young woman who claimed to be a prophet. Needless to say, this was a major red flag, but she didn't try to exercise her supernatural gifts, and it wasn't my home, so there was little I could do. This was just before I broke into Hollywood with the sale of my first script. My family and I were poor. In fact, so poor that for a while we couldn't afford to pay our telephone bill. I made calls from a payphone at a laundromat, which meant that we didn't have contact with our friend except during the weekly Bible study. Finally, he had overcome his fear to the point that once again he had made reservations to fly on a vacation with his family. It was while we were out of contact that the spiritual wolf struck. Attempting to take control of his life, this female prophet told him that if he took that flight, he would die because it would crash. Well, very quickly, a mutual friend reported this message from hell to me. I was not pleased. I got on the payphone and told our friend that he should not listen to a word she said. They would be absolutely safe on those flights. He accepted that message and took the trip. When he returned, he said they were the smoothest flights they had ever experienced. But what if we had not been there at that moment of vulnerability? Or what if our friend had not listened to me and listened to her? The woman never appeared again at our Bible study. Too bad. I was looking forward to having a chat with her. It would have been a chat that she never forgot. When you follow false teachers and leaders and believe their lies, there are predictable changes that take place in you. The first is subtle arrogance. You believe you have the truth, which places you above others. Arrogance is visible in cult members of every kind. Talk to a Scientologist or a member of Hamas or a passionate follower of an evil political leader or ideology. Arrogance pours from them. But that arrogance is always based on fear that has been promoted by the leaders they follow. That fear makes them want to huddle with others who are equally arrogant and afraid of the same things. The powers of darkness love to corral people together like sheep for slaughter. Groups large and small are uniquely vulnerable to satanic control through wolves. When Sharon and her sister began attending the prayer group led by Lynn and David Greene Jr., Sharon's husband Tex wasn't into it. Soon the Greenes informed Sharon that God had removed Tex's spirit from his body, and now it was completely filled with demons. So she should divorce him. Though this was absolutely unbiblical, it was a test, and to remain in the group, she obeyed. This first evil command was predictive of the hell that would destroy everyone, including the Greenes themselves. There is always one clear evidence that a person is coming under satanic control. They lose all true compassion. Tex's feelings didn't matter. He had been dehumanized. This same process of satanic dehumanization is operating right now among millions. Dehumanizing groups and individuals that you have been trained to dislike makes it so much easier to attack and destroy them. An extreme example is the dehumanization that takes place in mass shooters. They don't view those people as people to murder. They're only targets for their rage. But evil dehumanization is also in control of many who claim to be Christians. Proof of that is in their rants on social media against anyone who disagrees with them. They aren't attacking people, just targets. Galatians 5:22 and 23 gives the evidence that we should see in those who are true followers of Jesus. It's called the fruit of the Spirit. That evidence is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. But for each of these there is a satanic opposite, the fruit of Satan. Instead of love, hate. Instead of joy, pleasure. Instead of patience, angry impatience. Instead of kindness, brutalness. Instead of faithfulness, selfishness. Instead of gentleness, rigid harshness. And instead of self-control, loss of control. And all of it is based on fear. We are seeing that evil fruit in millions right now who care nothing for the poor, the lonely, the immigrant, the stranger, and the lost soul. Yet they claim to be followers of Jesus. In reality, they are following Satan as an angel of light. When you have lost all compassion and what's left is the fruit of Satan, it becomes acceptable to do the most evil things in the name of God. Here is the warning. when you see a charismatic leader anywhere, no matter how attractive and charming that person may be, who tells you what you want to hear and does things that you want done, even giving you gifts, yet displays the fruit of Satan, that leader is a servant of hell, a human wolf. The end result for those who follow such a person is destruction. The Halsteads are simply a terrifying example of where it can lead. Look around at the world. A contagion of violent darkness is spreading and strengthening. At some point, it will culminate in a satanic world ruler who will look so wonderful that millions will think he is Jesus come back to earth to save us. All the beautiful satanic wolves who have ever lived are nothing but preparation for him. What is the only power that can stand against such evil? It is the humility of Jesus Christ within those who truly belong to him. What is the humility of Jesus? It is power under the control of self-sacrificing love. It is compassion, especially for your enemies. In the days that are coming, the humility of Jesus needs to be in control of you and me. But is it? The only way for that to happen is for us to belong to him. We need to confess our sins, ask his forgiveness, then let him live his love through us in a world of ever-growing evil. So what has happened to the people involved in the Halstead tragedy? Sharon Lee Halstead received sentences that total 75 years, all of which must be served consecutively. She will remain in prison for the rest of her life. Her sister Deborah received a 20-year sentence and has been released. The two boys, Leo and Harry, went into court-appointed foster homes. Harry has spoken publicly about the horror that his mother's actions created for so many. He defends the Greenes as being good people who didn't deserve what happened to them. His attitude is based on the fact that they were kind to him as a child. Nothing is known about Leo or Nathaniel. David Greene Jr. has spoken of the guilt that he carries about all that took place. In his book, Roger Morneau states that a number of people ministered to Sharon and Deborah in prison, and the truth about everything they had done came upon them. Morneau believed that they deeply repented and found a new relationship with Jesus Christ. We hope that's true. The late Roger Morneau did an excellent job of documenting this entire horror in his 1997 book entitled Beware of Angels. He was himself a devout Seventh Day Adventist, so I don't agree with some of his beliefs. However, in the main, his book is excellent. My own experience with spiritual wolves, both in the church and in Hollywood, I have documented in my book, Day of the Wolf, Unmasking and Confronting Wolves in the Church. If we can be of help to you, contact us in the comments section. We will respond. And if you believe in what we are doing here at Thorn Crown Studios, please consider joining our support team. We have a Buy Me a Coffee page and a Patreon page. Whatever you can give is greatly appreciated. Until next time, remember, Jesus the true King is coming. Be ready.